Welcome to a journey through one of the most mysterious phenomena ever documented. A phenomenon that challenges everything we understand about time, about reality, and about the very fabric of our universe. You're about to hear true stories, real accounts from ordinary people who claim they accidentally slipped through time. Whether you're here to fall asleep to these mysterious tales or to explore the unexplained mysteries of temporal anomalies, settle in, get comfortable, close your eyes if you wish, and let these stories transport you through time itself. This is Time Slips, real cases of people who accidentally traveled through time. What are time slips? Before we journey into the documented cases, let's understand what we're dealing with. A time slip is not time travel in the science fiction sense. There are no machines, no DeLoreans, no elaborate devices powered by lightning strikes. Instead, a time slip is described as a spontaneous, unintentional, and often brief experience where a person seems to step out of their own time and into another era entirely. These experiences share common characteristics. First, they happen suddenly without warning. One moment, you're walking down a familiar street in the 21st century, and the next moment, that same street looks different. The buildings have changed. The people are dressed in clothing from decades past. The very air feels different. Second, people who experience time slips often report a strange, almost oppressive feeling. A sense that something is profoundly wrong. An eerie silence, a flatness to the environment, as if they've stepped into a photograph rather than reality. Third, the experience is usually brief, lasting anywhere from a few seconds to several minutes. And then, just as suddenly as it began, the person snaps back to their own time. The modern world returns, and they're left wondering what just happened. Time slips have been reported throughout history, across cultures, and in locations all around the world. Some happen in places steeped in history: ancient castles, old battlefields, historic city centers. But others occur in seemingly ordinary locations: a shopping street, a highway, a bookstore. Are these experiences real? Are they glimpses into the past, or perhaps even the future? Or are they tricks of the mind, hallucinations, or vivid daydreams? Science has theories. Psychology has explanations. But those who have experienced time slips, they know what they saw, what they felt. And for them, the experience was absolutely, undeniably real. Tonight, we'll explore the most famous documented cases. We'll hear the witnesses' own words, and we'll examine both the paranormal theories and the scientific explanations. So take a deep breath, relax your shoulders, let your mind drift, and let's begin with perhaps the most famous time slip case of all time. Case 1. The Versailles Time Slip, the Moberly Jourdain Incident. It is August 10, 1801. The date holds significance in French history. On this day, exactly 110 years earlier, angry revolutionaries stormed the Tuileries Palace. King Louis XVI was arrested, and Marie Antoinette would soon lose her head to the guillotine. But on August 10, 1901, two respectable English women were about to experience something that would baffle historians, fascinate paranormal researchers, and spark debates that continue to this day. Their names were Charlotte Ann Moberly and Eleanor Jourdain. Both were academics. Both held positions of significant respect at St. Hugh's College, Oxford. Moberly was the principal, Jourdain the vice principal. These were not fanciful women prone to hysteria. They were educated, rational, scholarly. And yet, what they claimed to experience that summer afternoon was impossible. Let's set the scene. Moberly and Jourdain were on holiday in Paris. They had known each other only a short time, becoming acquainted through their work at Oxford. This trip was, in part, an opportunity to deepen their friendship. On that warm August afternoon, they decided to visit the Palace of Versailles. The Grand Chateau, once home to French kings and queens, had become a museum. Tourists could wander the opulent halls, admire the Hall of Mirrors, and explore the extensive gardens. The two women were particularly interested in seeing the Petit Trianon, a more miniature chateau on the grounds. This had been Marie Antoinette's private retreat, her escape from the formality of court life. They set off through the gardens, following what they thought was the correct path. The day was beautiful. The gardens were lovely. Everything seemed perfectly normal. And then something changed. Later, when they compared notes, both women realized they had felt it at approximately the exact moment. A sudden, oppressive feeling, a heaviness in the air, an unnatural stillness. The sounds of other tourists, which had been present moments before, seemed to fade away. The gardens felt empty, deserted. Even the breeze seemed to stop. They continued walking, and that's when they began to notice people. But these people looked different. Their clothing was old-fashioned, not period costumes worn by tour guides, but authentic, worn, as if these people had stepped out of an 18th century painting. They saw a woman shaking a white cloth from the window of a building. The building itself looked different from what Moberly remembered from the guidebook. Older, more rustic. They passed two men dressed in long grayish-green coats and three-cornered hats. The men were engaged in conversation, but when Moberly and Jourdain approached, the men didn't acknowledge them. It was as if the women were invisible. The path they were following didn't seem right. They should have reached the Petit Trianon by now. Everything felt wrong, disorienting. And then they saw him. A man sitting near a small building, a kiosk or garden pavilion. He was wearing a cloak and a large hat. His face, Moberly would later describe, was absolutely revolting, pockmarked, with a cruel, almost evil expression. When he turned to look at them, both women felt a wave of fear, of deep, visceral unease. They hurried past, desperate now to find the Petit Trianon, to get back to familiar territory. Another man appeared. This one was handsome, dressed in a dark cloak and a sombrero-style hat. He seemed friendly. When they asked for directions, he pointed them toward a path and told them, rather urgently, that they should go that way. His manner was kind, but strange, and as soon as they turned to follow his direction, he vanished, disappeared. They crossed a small bridge. The oppressive feeling intensified, and then they saw her. A woman seated on the grass in front of the Petit Trianon. She was sketching, or perhaps simply sitting. Her dress was old-fashioned. Her fair hair was covered with a large white hat. The woman turned and looked directly at them. Moberly would later write that there was something ineffably sad about the woman's expression, a melancholy, a heaviness, as if she carried some terrible burden. And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the experience ended. A young man, clearly a tour guide, approached them. Suddenly, there were other tourists, in modern dress. The gardens were alive with sound again. Voices, footsteps, the rustle of leaves in the breeze. Everything was normal. For several days, neither woman mentioned what had happened. It was only a week later when Jourdain asked Moberly, "Do you think the Petit Trianon is haunted?" that they finally discussed it. And that's when they realized they had both experienced the same thing: the oppressive atmosphere, the strangely dressed people, the fearsome man by the kiosk, the disappearing gentleman, the sad woman. They were compelled to investigate. They returned to Versailles. They studied historical documents, paintings, descriptions of the gardens from the 18th century. And what they discovered was astonishing. The layout of the gardens, the buildings they had seen, matched not the current Versailles, but Versailles as it had existed in 1789, before the Revolution, when Marie Antoinette still lived there. The small bridge they had crossed had been demolished decades earlier. The kiosk where they had seen the frightening man no longer existed, but it had existed in Marie Antoinette's time. And the woman they had seen, sitting and sketching, wearing the old-fashioned dress with the large white hat, they became convinced they had seen Marie Antoinette herself. But not just any moment from her life. They believed they had witnessed August 10th, 1789, the very day angry revolutionaries were marching on the palace, the day Marie Antoinette would have received the terrible news, the beginning of the end of her world. In 1911, 10 years after their experience, Moberly and Jourdain published a book, an adventure, under the pseudonyms Elizabeth Morrison and Francis Lamont. The book caused a sensation. Some people believed their account entirely. Here were two credible, educated women with nothing to gain from fabricating such a story. Others were skeptical. They suggested the women had seen actors rehearsing a historical pageant, or that they had somehow gotten confused, or that they had experienced a shared hallucination. But Moberly and Jourdain stood by their story for the rest of their lives. They maintained absolutely that on that August afternoon they had slipped through time. They had walked, briefly, in the 18th century. They had witnessed a moment from Marie Antoinette's life. To this day, the Moberly-Jourdain incident remains one of the most famous and most debated time-slip cases in history. The Palace of Versailles acknowledges the story. There are still tourists who visit, hoping to catch a glimpse of the past. But was it real? Was it truly a time slip? Or was it something else? We may never know for sure, but their story has inspired countless others to come forward, to share their own experiences, their own moments when time seemed to slip. Take a deep breath. Relax. Let that story settle in your mind. Now, let's travel to a very different location, a modern city street, where time slips have been reported not just once, but many, many times. Case 2. Bold Street, Liverpool, Time Slip Central. Liverpool, England, a vibrant city in the northwest, known for the Beatles, for its maritime history, for its culture and energy, and for something far stranger. There is a street in Liverpool's city center, Bold Street, a pedestrian shopping area lined with shops, cafes, and bookstores. By all accounts, it's an ordinary street. Thousands of people walk down it every day. But Bold Street has a reputation. According to paranormal researchers, it is one of the most active time-slip locations in the world. Dozens, perhaps hundreds, of people have reported experiencing temporal anomalies on this seemingly normal street. Why Bold Street? What makes this location so unusual? Some researchers point to the circular underground railway system beneath Liverpool. They theorize that electromagnetic fields, generated by the trains, might somehow create temporal disturbances. Others suggest the street sits on a ley line, an invisible energy pathway that ancient people supposedly recognized and used. And some believe the very history of the place, the layers of time compressed into this space, somehow makes the barrier between past and present thinner here. Whatever the cause, the reports are consistent. and compelling. Let me share with you 3 of the most documented Bold Street time slip cases. The Frank time slip, 1996. The year is 1996. A police officer named Frank is off duty. He's walking through Liverpool city center with his wife. They're shopping, a perfectly ordinary Saturday afternoon. They're on Ranelagh Street, which leads to Bold Street. Frank's wife wants to go to a specific bookstore, Dylan's Bookshop, on Bold Street. Frank prefers to browse a different shop first, so they split up. His wife heads to Bold Street. Frank will catch up with her in a few minutes. Simple enough. Frank finishes his browsing and walks toward Bold Street to meet his wife. As he steps onto Bold Street, everything changes. The first thing he notices is the sudden quiet. Moments ago, he was surrounded by shoppers, cars, the ambient noise of a busy city. But now, it's strangely silent, muted. He looks around, and his breath catches. The cars are wrong. They're old, 1950s-style vehicles, rounded shapes, chrome details, nothing modern. The people, their clothing is outdated. Women in long skirts and headscarves, men in suits and hats. Nobody is wearing jeans. Nobody has a mobile phone. Nobody looks modern. Frank is confused, disoriented. This must be some historical reenactment, a filming location for a movie. But there are no cameras, no film crew, no signs announcing an event. He continues walking because he's supposed to meet his wife at the bookstore. But when he reaches the location where Dylan's bookshop should be, there's a different store. The sign reads, Cripps, a woman's fashion shop. Displayed in the window are old-fashioned dresses and shoes, styles from decades past. Frank is now genuinely alarmed. He knows this street. He's been here countless times. Dylan's bookshop is right here. But now, there's an entirely different store. He decides to go inside, to ask what's going on, because this has to be some mistake. He pushes open the door and steps into what appears to be an authentic 1950s shop. The interior matches the window display. Old-fashioned clothing, period-appropriate fixtures. Even the smell is different, like old fabric and dust. A young woman, dressed in period clothing, is arranging boxes. She looks up as Frank enters, and there's something strange about her expression. She looks surprised, almost shocked to see him. Frank opens his mouth to speak, to ask where Dylan's bookshop has gone. But before he can say a word, the woman seems to fade. The interior of the shop shimmers like a mirage. And suddenly, Frank is back in his own time. The shop around him is now Dylan's bookshop. Modern books, modern lighting, modern customers. And there, standing near the entrance, looking worried, is his wife. "Where were you?" she asks. "I've been waiting for ages." Frank can barely answer. He just experienced something impossible. He was in the exact location, but in a different time. The 1950s, or perhaps the early 60s. When he later researched, he discovered something chilling. Cripps, the women's fashion shop he had seen, the shop he had entered, it had existed, in that exact location, on Bold Street. In the 1950s and 60s. But it closed decades ago, long before Dylan's bookshop opened in that space. Frank's experience is one of the most detailed and most credible Bold Street time slips. He was a police officer, trained to observe and trained to assess situations logically. He had no reason to fabricate such a story, and nothing to gain from it. But he knew what he experienced. He had walked briefly into the past. The Sean time slip 2006. Now, let me tell you about a very different kind of witness, a young man named Sean, age 19. And, to be completely honest, Sean was not a model citizen at the time of his experience. The year is 2006. Sean is shoplifting in a store in Liverpool city center. He's caught. A security guard spots him and gives chase. Sean runs down the street, trying to lose the guard. He turns onto Hanover Street, which connects to Bold Street. He's running fast, adrenaline pumping, focused only on escape. He turns onto Bold Street and everything stops. Not literally, but Sean's perception shifts dramatically. The modern stores are gone. The street looks completely different. The buildings are older. The signage different. Old-fashioned lettering. Colors he doesn't recognize. The people are dressed in clothing from the past. 60s style, maybe 70s. And the vehicles, the cars parked along the street, are vintage. Nothing modern. Sean stops running. He's frozen, terrified. Not of the security guard anymore, but of this. This is an impossible scene. He turns around, slowly, trying to make sense of what he's seeing. And then, behind him, Bold Street returns to normal. The modern street, the 21st century. But ahead of him, in the direction he was running, it's still the past. He's standing at the border between two times. He stumbles backwards, back toward the modern part, away from the impossible. And as he does, the past fades. Bold Street becomes thoroughly modern again. The security guard never caught up to him. Sean was able to slip away, but he wasn't thinking about that anymore. He was thinking about what he'd just seen, what he'd just experienced. Sean's case is interesting because he was in a heightened state, running, afraid. Could that have made him more susceptible to whatever causes these time slips? Or did Bold Street do what Bold Street does, regardless of who's walking down it? The Jane time slip, 2006. The same year, 2006. A woman named Jane is shopping on Bold Street, another perfectly ordinary day. She's looking for a specific store, a modern chain store. She's familiar with Bold Street. She knows where she's going. But as she walks, something feels off. The shops don't look quite right. The names are different. The window displays seems outdated. She stops, confused. Maybe she's on the wrong street. But no, this is definitely Bold Street. She recognizes the buildings, the layout. And then she notices the people. Their clothing, old-fashioned, 1960s or 70s style. And their behavior. They're not using phones. They're not carrying modern shopping bags with recognizable brand logos. They're different. Jane feels a wave of disorientation, almost dizzy. She stops walking, closes her eyes, takes a breath. When she opens her eyes, everything is normal again. Modern shops, modern people, the 21st century restored. The entire experience lasted perhaps 30 seconds, maybe a minute. But it was enough to convince Jane that something extraordinary had just happened. These are just 3 cases, but there are many more. Researchers have collected dozens of Bold Street time slip reports, some brief, some last for several minutes, but all remarkably consistent. People describe stepping into the 1950s, the 60s, the 70s. The stores change, the cars change, the people change. And then, just as suddenly, they're back in their own time. What's causing this? Why Bold Street? The electromagnetic theory suggests that underground trains might generate fields that affect human perception, or even jeopardize the fabric of space-time itself. But would electromagnetic fields really cause such consistent, specific hallucinations? Would they make people see the same era, the same types of cars and clothing? Or is something else happening, something we don't yet understand? Is the past still there somehow, playing out on a different level? And specific locations, under certain conditions, allow us to perceive it. We don't have answers, only questions, and the reports that keep coming. To this day, Bold Street remains active. People still report temporal anomalies. If you visit Liverpool and walk down Bold Street, you might experience it yourself. Or you might have a typical shopping trip. But maybe, just maybe, pay attention to the details, the shops, the people, the cars. Because Bold Street has a way of surprising people. Let your mind rest for a moment. Breathe slowly, in and out. When you're ready, we'll continue our journey to another case, another time slip, another person who stepped outside of time. The Andrew Carlson Enigma, the time traveler from 2256. Now, this following case is different. It's not a brief glimpse into the past. It's not a disorienting walk down a street that suddenly looks 50 years older. This case involves a man who claimed to have come from the future and who had proof in the form of extraordinary wealth. Or, at least, that's the story. Let me be transparent with you. The Andrew Carlson case is controversial. Some researchers believe it's entirely fabricated, a hoax, a viral story that was never meant to be taken seriously. But others point to elements of the story that remain unexplained, curious, worth examining. So let's explore it together, and you can decide what you believe. The year is 2003, the month, January. The location, somewhere in the United States. A man named Andrew Carlson, age 44, is arrested. The charge? Securities fraud, suspicion of insider trading. Now, insider trading happens. It's illegal, but not uncommon. People with access to confidential information about companies use it to buy or sell stocks before the information becomes public, and they profit. The Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC, watches for this. They have algorithms, patterns they look for, anomalies that suggest someone has insider knowledge. Andrew Carlson triggered every alarm. Here's what allegedly happened. Andrew Carlson started with an initial investment of $800. $800, a modest sum. Over the course of just 2 weeks, he turned that $800 into $350 million. Let me repeat that. $800 to $350 million in 2 weeks. And here's the impossible part. He didn't make 1 or 2 lucky trades. He made 126 trades. Every single one was successful. Every single stock he bought went up. Every stock he sold went down immediately after. Perfect predictions, perfect timing, 126 times in a row. Now, anyone with even basic knowledge of the stock market knows this is impossible. The market is volatile, unpredictable. Even the best traders, the most experienced experts, lose money regularly. No one has a perfect record. No one. Except, apparently, Andrew Carlson. So the SEC noticed, and they investigated, and they arrested him. And that's when, according to the reports, Andrew Carlson told them something extraordinary. He claimed he was from the future, specifically from the year 2256, 253 years in the future. He said he had traveled back in time, using technology that exists in his era. Time travel, he explained, was commonplace in 2256. People did it regularly. And he had come back to make money because he knew, from history, exactly what the stock market would do. He knew which companies would succeed, which would fail. Every trend, every fluctuation. To him, it was not insider trading. It was knowing the past, or rather, knowing what would be his past. But he made a mistake. He got greedy, made too many trades, too many perfect trades, and drew attention to himself. According to the reports, Carlson was remarkably calm during his interrogation. He offered to prove his story. He said he could tell investigators the location of Osama bin Laden, the cure for AIDS, when the next major terrorist attack would occur, and how to prevent it. All he wanted, in exchange, was to be allowed to return to his time, to go back to the future, and to keep his fortune. The story, if it's true, raises so many questions. If Andrew Carlson was really from the future, why would he use time travel to get rich? Surely, in an era where time travel exists, there are easier ways to acquire wealth. And why would someone from 250 years in the future not know that making 126 perfect trades in 2 weeks would immediately trigger suspicion? Skeptics point out these inconsistencies. And then there's the bigger problem. There's very little solid evidence that Andrew Carlson existed at all. The story first appeared in a tabloid publication, Weekly World News, a publication known for sensational stories, often entirely fictional stories. They ran headlines like "Bat Boy Found Living in Cave" and "Elvis Alive and Running a Burger Joint." So, trusting Weekly World News as a source is problematic. And yet, other news outlets picked up the story. Briefly, Yahoo News ran it. Some international papers mentioned it. And then it disappeared. No follow-up, no trial, no further information about Andrew Carlson, no records of his arrest, no SEC documents, nothing. It's as if he vanished. Some believers take this as evidence. They say, of course, there are no records, because he did what he said he would. He went back to the future. Maybe he was released. Maybe he escaped. Maybe someone from his own time came back to retrieve him. And without Andrew Carlson in the present, the timeline corrected itself. No records, no evidence, just a strange story that circulated for a brief time. Skeptics say it's simpler than that. It was a hoax, a made-up story that briefly went viral before people realized it wasn't real. So, what do we make of the Andrew Carlson case? If we take it at face value, it's an astonishing time slip. Not an accidental slip, but an intentional journey. Time travel from the distant future. But the evidence is weak, almost non-existent. Thank you for joining us on this captivating journey through time slips, where ordinary individuals have encountered extraordinary phenomena, challenging our understanding of reality. We've explored the fascinating stories of Frank, the Moberly and Jourdain incident, Sean, the young burglar, and Andrew Carlson, each presenting unique experiences that defy explanation. Frank wandered into a vibrant 1950s backdrop, bewildered by the striking differences around him. Moberly and Jourdain's enchanting adventure at Versailles invited historical figures into their lives, while Sean's escapade on Bold Street led him momentarily into another era, escaping the present. Andrew Carlson's slip into the future unveiled technological marvels that left him searching for answers. But what do these time slips really mean? But what do these stories signify? Why do they captivate our imagination? And what does the discussion around them reveal about our society? On one side, supporters assert these stories reflect real encounters with alternate dimensions or parallel timelines. They suggest that time slips challenge the notion of linear time, implying that our understanding of the past, present, and future could be much more fluid, much like theories in modern physics. The very fabric of time, they argue, is not as rigid as we believe. Perhaps these experiences symbolize our collective yearning for exploration and understanding of the unknown. They suggest that these encounters could reveal something deeper about human consciousness and the fabric of time itself. Some theorize that if time slips are real, they may even unlock the secrets of time travel, igniting endless questions about our place in history. As one theory suggests, what if our perception of time is merely a construct, and these occurrences are simply our minds experiencing different dimensions? Conversely, skepticism looms large. Critics argue these tales are mere illusions or psychological phenomena, examples of cognitive dissonance, stress, or even hallucinations. They emphasize the lack of empirical evidence, warning against romanticizing personal experiences without scientific backing. The skeptics question the veracity of memories and suggest that vivid experiences may stem from cultural legends, misperceptions, or dreamlike states rather than genuine time travel. The debate continues. Are time slips portals to other times, or are they reflections of our minds exploring creative possibilities? Engagement with these narratives reveals our desire to grapple with concepts of time and existence. They elicit wonder and inspire discussions about reality's complexity. After all, in a rapidly advancing world intertwined with technology and science, such tales encourage us to remain open to possibilities that may defy our current understanding. In the end, the significance of time slips goes beyond the narratives themselves. They prompt us to ponder our understanding of time, memory, and reality. Perhaps they remind us of the wonders yet to be discovered in our universe, questions that transcend time and space. Now, we turn it over to you, our viewers. What do you think? Are time slips a glimpse into other times, or simply figments of our imagination? Have you had experiences that resonate with time slips? Or do you lend your thoughts to the skeptical view? We want to hear from you. Share your ideas and any similar stories of time anomalies you might know in the comments below. Your insights could open the door to fascinating discussions. If you enjoyed this exploration of time slips and mysteries, remember to like this video. If this video reaches 100,000 views and garners 5,000 likes, we will produce Volume 2, which will dive deeper into other real-life time slip stories. So don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the Few Minutes channel. Hit the notification bell so you won't miss any of our future mysteries. We're excited to explore more captivating phenomena together. Thank you for embarking on this journey of exploration with us. Keep wondering about what lies beyond the veil of time. Until next time, stay curious and keep questioning the nature of time and reality.